So the expansion is one of the most important parts of the recurve technique, and I've done countless videos on this already. But today I'm joined by Mike Peer as well. So thank you for joining, Michael.
Hello, Ash. Pleasure to be here.
But yeah, thanks for joining. So I wanted to talk about expansion a little bit more today because I've done some videos on it. I always talk about this in my coaching as well, but it's like one of the most important points of the shot because essentially what you do is going to dictate your release. And a lot of archers have tried a lot of different ways of expanding. And then when you talk to different international archers, they've got different ways of expanding as well. So the
Yep.
main kind of thing I want to talk about is essentially what your experience was, whether you were kind of pushing or you would consider yourself pushing towards the target a little bit more to expand through the clicker,
Yeah, I
or whether you
understand.
were pulling more, or whether it was even, and also kind of what your experience was on the team with maybe previous archers like Larry Godfrey, Simon Terry, Alan Wills, or maybe talking to international archers as well. Because obviously there's a lot of ways you can pull through the clicker. And if you're not conscious about which way you're doing, your brain will come up with some magical way of doing it because it's clever like that.
Absolutely. There's plenty of ways to get it wrong. I wish I had $1 for every time I saw someone pushing with their hand through the clicker,
That is, yeah,
and
that's a
they've
good
got
point.
no idea they're doing it. So, yeah.
That is a great point, and that's probably a good kind of little warning to start with pushing bow shoulder wise or front wise. It's quite easy to kind of do things like that. So we'll touch on that a little bit later. Quickly, if you're enjoying this video, you're going to love the three things I want to mention to you right now. So first of all, if you haven't already, you need to check out onlinearcheryacademy.com, which is my free website where you can go and there's basically technique guides, training guides, equipment guides, how to tune your bow, loads of stuff on there completely free. You can also put your email address in to get my free weekly newsletter. Over 8,000 archers worldwide read this, where I send tips that you can't get anywhere else. Maybe equipment tips, mental tips, training tips, stuff about competitions, everything in there. Also, if you haven't already checked out my Online Archery Academy video courses, what are you doing? What are you doing with your life? You need to check them out. You can go to onlinearcheryacademy.com, click explore the courses, or you can go directly to courses.onlinearcheryacademy.com. There is currently, and I say currently, a beginner's course here that you can see, an advanced recurve technique course as well that you should check out. And eventually, very soon, there's going to be a tuning course as well. So if you haven't checked those out already, you can go there and have a look there. There's sections where you can basically see every single thing that I cover, which is a lot. There's a lot covered. This is the most comprehensive course on recurve technique in the world. I'm pretty sure I haven't seen any course that comes anywhere near this in terms of the detail that I go through every single stage of the shot, of your technique, how to troubleshoot those areas as well, how to train them, and I offer a money back guarantee with that as well. Finally, the last thing I want to mention, if you haven't already, go to members.onlinearcheryacademy.com, or you can go to onlinearcheryacademy.com and click become a member. And there you can join my membership, which is just £3.99 a month to basically get exclusive access to me and loads of equipment advice, technique advice, free videos, Q&As, that kind of thing. So after this video, I'm going to record some more information in here on Q&As that people have sent in, technique things that maybe aren't as suitable for YouTube because they're just not going to get the views, that sort of stuff. This insider access is in the community and you can see all organized in a really nice way. You also get my newsletter archive of all of those previous newsletters that I mentioned. You can access in here as well. So there's loads of stuff. Check it out. And now back to the video.
Can I
But
also just cut
yeah,
in there quickly and just say, when we talk about pushing with the front, the comment I always get is muscles can't push, they can only contract. So actually what we're saying is biologically impossible. And I had this in a seminar last year, and I said, totally agree with you, sir. So how would you describe it? And then he just sat there, and I said, exactly. So we'll call it pushing.
yeah, because that's the thing. It's like, well, how is punching possible then? How does a boxer punch? It's like, yes, technically, but everyone knows. Yeah. So if there's anyone thinking about that right now, thinking about writing a comment like that, then still write it below because it helps engagement for YouTube. Um, So from my point of view, I tried a lot of different methods of expanding. Most of them I tried were on the rear side of the shot, the draw side. The one I kind of settled on the most was essentially expanding with this part of the elbow away from the
Hmm.
target and slightly around the body was the kind of times that I shot best. And I had to feel like I was doing this quite aggressively. So maybe I had 1 millimeter left on the clicker, and from the outside, it would look very much like I wasn't doing that much. I was just squeezing a little bit through, but internally, it felt very much like I was really essentially pulling this around and directing my elbow away from the target against the 45 pounds or whatever of draw
Yep.
weight I was doing. Um, I tried a number of times pushing from the
Hmm.
front. What I found from the front, I had some incredible scores in practice from that. And particularly remember preparing for an indoor competition, I had a run of maybe 298, 297, 298 in practice for an indoor competition. And I was like, this is the way, this is the secret. I've trained
You
this for like a
found the
month now.
solution.
This is gonna, yeah, this is incredible. And then I went to the national indoors or the back to back in the UK, I think it was, shot terribly. Just everywhere. Literally couldn't seem, I think I shot about 282 or 285. I can't even remember. Basically, the difference
Okay.
was huge. And it
Different
became
leagues.
apparent,
Yep.
yeah, that basically in competition for me, when I was a little bit kind of finer, like under pressure or whatever, didn't have as much fine control, I was just popping the shots off completely. So, what's your experience with what did you use to expand? And did you try different ways?
What I found interesting is when you told me about this topic, I didn't immediately jump in there with I do this,
Okay, yep.
because I think this is possibly or almost definitely was one of the weaknesses in my career. So yes, I might have had some world-class results, but I think this was my area of weakness. So it's interesting to ask me this. I think a lot of my career, especially when I was going back to say when it was going well, it was I didn't have something. I just had a general feeling. So yes, I would once I got to here, once I was at full draw, the feeling was just I don't know. I find it hard to describe it. I definitely had a strong front arm, so there was definitely but I guess I would describe it 50-50 then. I just felt this overall opening up
Expanding.
feeling.
Yeah.
Uh, but that didn't give me a good release. It didn't give me consistency. I could be, frankly, qualifying first at a World Championships one week, and then I could be failing to make the British team 2 months later. So it didn't give me consistency. So one of the things working with the American coach Lloyd Brown, he very much wanted to give me more of a focus. So he would get me to draw up to full draw, and then he would push an arrow against
The great
my
drill.
elbow and get me to push against it. And first of all, when he put his elbow here, it felt to me like he was touching under here. My sensation and awareness of my elbow
Interesting.
was totally out. And I find that with many things in archery, you can be feeling that you're going in one direction, but actually it's another. So actually touching it with an arrow to remind the archer this is where you're pushing against. That did improve things and did actually deliver my best outdoor scores when I did put regular focus on this.
That's really interesting because I love that drill. People who have watched my channel before know that I love that drill. It's on my website in the drill section if anyone wants to have a look at it, onlinearcheryacademy.com. It's all free. You can look at it there. Brilliant drill. I also saw you, because I guess I didn't see Lloyd do this with you, but what I did see was your genius device, which we nicknamed the Executioner, not
We
because it
did.
executed anyone, but because it helps your execution. But basically, you got a fishing rod, didn't you? And you
Yep.
basically clamped it in the ground it was just a metal plate where the fishing rod could stand, but you could do it in just soil if you put it deep enough or whatever.
Yep.
And it went behind your elbow, so the fishing rod is straight, and it did that exact thing without needing
Yeah,
Lloyd
so I
to stand
draw
there
up, my
every
elbow
time.
comes against the fishing rod, and because the fishing rod is flexible, I can follow through through the fishing rod. And to be clear, it's my father's genius idea. So
Oh,
give
okay,
him
nice. Yeah,
credit where credit's due. And he made the
yeah.
metal plate, a flat metal plate you could stand on, then with a piece of pipe welded in the upright position that the rod fitted in. But you're right, if you were on a grass shooting line, you could just poke it in the ground and then you just back up to it. So when you're at full draw, the fishing rod just touches your elbow. And that certainly did help, because with all of these things, I always say, if you can't feel it, you can't fix it. So unless you can feel and be aware of what you're trying to change, you'll never fix it. And that gave me the focal point to be able to fix and work on my release. And yes, it may not have made me an Olympic champion, but it definitely delivered me my best outdoor scores by far.
And I remember watching you shoot that, and I remember, let's say, 2 weeks before you were using that executioner, I remember seeing you shoot, and your release was how it normally is, like it was fine, but maybe not as clean as after. And then you used that executioner, and then I visibly noticed a difference in your release, like to the point where I think I used the executioner for a bit, and
Yeah.
I got Lloyd to like let me use it with the fishing rod in it, and I was like, this is a great idea. This is really good. So that's interesting. That was your kind of best or most consistent feeling of your release, if you like, with that. Did you try sometimes pushing more? Like, did anyone ever say that and you tried it and had any experience with that, or what did you think about that?
I think it was probably always my default to be over 50% on the front, maybe. So I never had a problem with weakness on the front. So the push was always just sort of, I never had to think about it. I was really lucky. Both my grip and my front arm, I could really, most of my career, I could just forget about them. And I know there's other athletes where all they talk about is their hand in the bow and what their bow arm felt like. And to me, it's just a big old block of wood out there, and it doesn't move and it doesn't complain. But I definitely know when I first moved from compound to recurve, I would definitely draw to full draw and then push through the shot. That was my default. And indoors, it delivered me some international medal winning performances. And outdoors, I was absolutely hopeless.
Interesting.
You know, I went from switching to recurve. So I was world number 2 compound, switched to recurve. 6 months later, I finished 5th at the European Indoor Championships. So I think, hey ho, here we go. And then I go outside and I realize I'm 100 points off doing the same outside. So there is a difference. You might perfect something that works at 18 meters and absolutely be still hopeless outside. There is a difference.
That's a big indoor to outdoor switch there, isn't it? I think that's a great point you mentioned with knowing, or, being realistic with what your kind of default is. For instance, you were quite strong on the front, so you kind of needed to focus on the back. Because this reminds me of a conversation I had with Kubon Chan in like 2018 or 19, so after he'd won the Olympics. But I was lucky enough to train at the Hyundai Steel Training Center for a day, and we were talking about expansion and that kind of thing. And he said that he's very, very strong on the draw side just by default in his shot. And you can kind of see this when you watch him shoot. It kind of makes sense, his style and the way he shoots and his release. And if he's not careful, he overdoes that draw side and his bow shoulder comes back and his aiming is a bit wobbly. So he said for him, his 50-50 balance feels more like 70 on the front and 30 on the back, because otherwise he's going to lose the front, and he knows that's the thing for him. There's also a World Archery video, if people can watch it, I think still on YouTube now. If you go to World Archery YouTube, they did a shoot like me for Kubon Chan, and his shot process was quite different to other ones, because he actually said he focused on the aiming quite a lot. And this is exactly what I'm talking about now, where he says he was focusing on that pushing, focusing on that aiming, because to him, he was really intent on, my sight pin needs to be more stable and I need to focus on my bow shoulder side more, because that's going to work for me. And we had the conversation about this, because I'm literally exactly the opposite. I'm more like you, where my default is my bow shoulder was quite strong, quite stable, and I would not do enough on the draw side. So for me, I had to focus on the draw side and get that working, essentially.
Okay.
So I think that's probably the takeaway for most people today, is like, it's less about one is correct for them. They can't just pick one and see, but try and find out what your default is. Try and find out, maybe if you're not sure, get a coach to watch you who knows what they're talking about and can see. But if you're always biased on the right side, on the draw side, I should say, then maybe you want to make sure your bow side's good. If you're always great on the bow side and your
Yes.
draw side's a bit weak, maybe focus on that side more rather than cookie cutter one size. Oh, you must do bow shoulder or you must do draw side. I think it's a little bit more
And
individual.
that sounds like great advice, because also I might be telling you exactly what works for me, but like you said about your Korean friend, my perception might be totally off. So I think, oh, 50-50, but actually I'm doing 70-30. So you do have to experiment and find out. And when you've had long careers like us, you realize which bits you can sort of rely on and which ones you need to work on.
Really nail them. And I think that's a great point as well with the perception is just because you feel like you're doing something, don't assume you actually are doing it. Take a video and then fact check yourself and say, okay, is this actually working? So, for example, for the draw side one, I would feel like, okay, I'm really drawing massively. I feel like I'm doing Kim Woo Jin here. I'm like here and I'm really pulling really hard and it feels like I'm using this really well. And then I look at the video and it's like coming in slow. I'd come into full draw and it's like squeezing around a little bit, but not really. And then the release is a bit soft. So the feeling is massively off to what is actually happening. And the only way you can gauge that, a coach is great. But obviously, like you said as well, with the having the perception, get the video, look at it. And if that cue doesn't work, for example, if an archer I'm coaching says about this cue and then they're expanding and coming around and the release hasn't changed, try a different cue, because a different cue for you might do the same thing as something else for someone else. So it's less about, you've probably had this as well, people comment about like the trapezius muscle here should contract and then this muscle here should contract, and then like what about the rhomboid, like are you focused on the rhomboid or the trapezius or the upper trap? And it's like, bro, don't worry about that. Pick one cue, gauge if it works or not, and move on and pick another one, and then do some kind of experiments with it. I think that's going to be a bit better, isn't it?
It sounds like great advice to me.
Absolutely. So hopefully this was useful. There is no definitive answer, I think, is the kind of finishing argument, if you like. But yeah, give it a go. Let us know in the comments whether you're more front or draw side biased. I'd be interested to know. But hopefully this video was useful. Thank you for joining me, Mike, for this as well.
No problem. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was good. And yeah, if you haven't yet, subscribe already, and we'll see you in the next video.